So Jason, you're one of those guys that I think is an amazing person to, look up to and learn from. Author, double CCIE, but you also did a whole bunch of sessions at Cisco Live, right?
Yeah, so that was another thing that was like a dream come true. So, I mentioned I started Cisco in July of 2013, and next thing you know, I go to my first Cisco Live that year.
I've heard you say multiple times, you're not going to write another book. Are you? Have you been convinced somehow? Maybe
There might be another book or two in the future.
that's as much as you can say.
That's about all I could talk about right now, but
It'll be big.
exciting big things coming. Absolutely. There were 3 topics that were absolutely that petrified me: multicast,
Yes.
quality of service, MPLS. Right, and I'm sure that's a lot for a lot of the people
Yep.
out there. It's the same way,
Yep.
right?
Everyone, it's David Bombal coming to you from Cisco Live, back with the amazing Jason Gooley. Jason, great to have you back, man.
Good seeing you again.
Jason, you didn't come from money, right?
No, I came from the lack thereof money.
But that's an inspiration for a lot of people, right? Because you came from a very poor background.
Yep.
Did you do really well at school?
No, I did really poorly at school, actually. I think a lot of it was the fact that, and I'm sure a lot of folks out there can relate to this, is it didn't interest me. And I mean, learning about social studies and stuff like that, science was cool when you're mixing things and doing something that was actually hands-on. That was kind of cool. But outside of that, nothing really resonated with me. And I wasn't interested in it. That's probably why I was absent quite a bit from school. We moved around a lot. And then sometimes, just being me, I just wouldn't show up. And I think it was just because it was just something that it just wasn't working with me. And I never thought I would have had a future in education.
But you went from no money or poor background,
Yeah.
very bad education, if I can say that,
Yeah, absolutely.
to 2 CCIEs
2 CCIEs, routing and switching and service provider.
and author of how many books?
7 books now at this point.
So I think it's an inspiration for everyone, right?
It's crazy.
If you put in the effort, your past doesn't define your future.
Absolutely. And so some of the quotes that you put out on your website, I think, are tremendous. Oh, not even just a website, all social media, right? You look at things and, I got some really good advice. Dave Mustaine actually gave me this advice from Megadeth. And what he said is, just because something goes wrong or doesn't work out the way that you want it to right now, do not let that define even the rest of the hour,
Yeah.
the rest of the day, the rest of the week, or having the rest of your life, right? And that advice changed my life, because you start thinking about things like that. And in the context of, I know I could do better in this moment. And sometimes what that does is it almost splits yourself from yourself.
Yeah.
So you can look at what you're doing, so you can try to do better and try to help other people and yourself at the same time, right?
Now, we were talking a bit off camera.
Yep.
There's a cool story. You've got to tell me about that. What's Metal Devops?
So if anybody remembers, back in Barcelona, I had done an interview with David, and one of the things that came up was, well, where's your blog? Where's your YouTube channel?
Exactly.
And I said, well, I didn't really have one. And you said, well, if you did, what would it be?
Yeah.
And I said, Metal Devops. It was literally on the fly. And he's like, oh, well, what would it be about? I'd be like, metal music and technology. We would talk to engineers who like metal music and all this. Yeah, that turned into something.
But you got to tell us as well, because you were telling me that you go on tour. Is that right? With some very special people.
Yeah, so, I've been fortunate enough. I've been working a lot with the band Megadeth. So I've been really good friends with them guys and going out on tour, helping with meet and greets and things like that. And even doing a little bit of IT work for some of them guys. And it's been a lot of fun. I've even had some of them on the show.
So is this on your YouTube channel, or which show are you talking about?
Yeah, so Metal Devops. It's the intersection of metal music and technology. I got to give you that.
I love
You
it.
have to
Yeah,
have
brilliant.
that.
Thanks so much.
And it's interesting. So it's housed on YouTube, but at the same time, we have metaldevops.com where you can go to that and look at some of the interviews. And during the pandemic, I kind of, we all kind of took a break for a while, and I just recently did a couple interviews, and I'm trying to get it back up off the ground here. So it's going pretty good.
What are your favorite bands, favorite songs?
So I'm going to have to shout out to Megadeth, because, I do a lot of stuff with them, and then of course we don't want to tell them, but I am also a big Metallica fan. So, and one would not be here without the other. So as you know, there's a lot of love in the metal community for those 2 major bands. But Pantera, all these bands has been a big part of my heart over the years.
Now, you joined Cisco, 10 years ago?
It's been over 10 years. It was July 8th, 2013.
And I saw you didn't just join Cisco and then do a full-time job. You were also, I have to say this, you were like insane enough to decide not to write one book, but how many books?
At this point, there are 7 books written, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. At first, I thought I was not going to do any more than one, but then all of a sudden, it bit me. And seeing the folks actually react to it, I know you get this a lot. Seeing the success of other people is really something that
Exactly.
it tickles you. It makes you really happy. So I kept going with it. So
you recently wrote the Encore update, is that correct?
yeah, so Ian Core, second edition out there with Brad Edgeworth, Romero, and David Huckabee. And the funny thing is, earlier today, I'm meeting with a customer. We're sitting out there for an hour talking. And after it, he tells me that he'd passed the Ian Core exam here yesterday for the first time, right? Took it, passed it.
That's brilliant.
And he had no idea that I had anything to do with it. And the account manager had, or the SE had said to him that, he wrote it. And it was the funniest thing that he passed at first attempt. And it made me feel really good that use case, somebody actually passed right there in front of me. And it was cool.
That's amazing. I mean, for me, it is, we're not 21 anymore.
Yeah. Oh, no.
But I mean,
Times 2 or 3.
when we started, perhaps it was more difficult. Information wasn't as much available. But
Absolutely.
I'm like you, right? Like you said, we both want to help the next generation and make it easier for them.
Yeah.
And I'm what you're doing with the books is fantastic. I love it.
It's crazy because it became at first I never thought I was, like I said, I never thought I was going to do another one. I started doing it and then I was like this, I like I said, I had full head of hair. My forehead turned into a 5 head and it just kept going. And then here I am now 7 books later. And I just can't believe that it has made such an impact on the community and the industry. And frankly, that's it. It's all about this community. Props everybody else up in this learning and it's amazing.
But it gets even more insane, I would say, because you had a kid, or was it 2?
2, yeah. So my daughter was born in 2014. While I just passed my CCIE. So my wife was pregnant. I was going for that first one, and then I was trying to have my son, and I was going for service provider, and then I got service provider, and I was going for the DE, and then my son was born, and I was like, it feels like every time I go for a certification, I have a baby. So I think I've been done for a while. So. And then it just kept going. We were writing books at the same time, and my wife, I can't believe her. God bless her, because my gosh, most folks will not support that kind of a 24-hour-a-day job.
Yeah, your wife's very special to allow you to do that because, working full-time job, young kids, and deciding to be an author at the same time.
It's incredible. And I have to shout out to my daughter, Kaylee, and my son, Jackson, because my daughter is 9 now, and she has told me that she wanted to grow up and be an engineer, eventually work at Cisco.
That's cool.
And I'm talking to her the other day. She's doing programmability using like these directional things and making her character move across the screen in this game. And I'd never even seen it. I'm like, that's incredible. And I had nothing to do with it. So I guess maybe somehow in a roundabout way I had something to do with it. But I'm so proud of them.
That's so brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, big question though.
Yeah.
I've heard you say multiple times you're not going to write another book. Are you? Have you been convinced somehow? Maybe
There might be another book or 2 in the future.
that's as much as you can say out of it.
It's about all I could talk about right now, but
But it'll be big.
exciting big things coming. Absolutely.
I'm really glad to hear that. I mean, I often get asked to write books, and it's like the amount of work it is to write a book. There's no chance I'm going to do it. So hats off to you, man, because
Thank you.
It looks easy. You got to write, and then you got to make sure all your grammar's correct, and everything else is good.
Oh, and you know what else? I mean, I don't envy you either, because you're out there with the video content is not easy either, right? You're making video courses, the editing, the light, everything's got to be just right, the audio, right? And, we've all had snafus while we're recording, and all of a sudden you're like, the audio's gone.
Now, let's turn this to advice, right? Because there might be people that want to become like you or do things that you've done. Advice for aspiring authors.
You know what? I think the first thing you want to do is just start writing something. I was starting out doing some blogs. I had my own blog for a little bit of time, and then I subsequently transitioned into doing authoring for books, and it turned into things like doing interviews on Cisco's website, like cisco.com had a bunch of technical articles that I was writing and stuff like that about certifications and programmability and all this. Just getting your stuff out there for other folks to read, I guarantee you it will help someone. And this is the biggest thing, and I know you feel the same way because we have a lot of synergy together. If you help one person, wasn't it worth it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't it worth it?
Yeah.
And chances are if you help the one person, you might help another. And if that person helps somebody else, that's what this whole community is about. It's just that bringing everybody together, sharing the information, and dropping the ego at the doorstep, right? That, I think, is it. Just get started with something.
I love what you said there. You get started and just do it, right?
Just do it.
Because if the best way to learn to write is to write, the best way to make videos is literally to make videos.
Well, and then you do a lot of videos, which I am so impressed with, because it might be technology that I've never even touched, right? How to hack into something here, how to do something, and it's all very valid and good information. And at some point, it's new to everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming at some point you have to research and learn something to do the video, right?
Yeah.
And it was like that when I started doing the network programmability, right? And it was 2015. I was approached to write this book on network programmability, and I've said this on DevNet many, many, many times. You can look up the videos on YouTube. It was one of these things where, like, I want you to write a book on network programmability and automation, and I'm like, I don't know network programmability and automation.
Yeah.
But they really wanted me to do it, and it was one of those things that I researched, I started learning, and I started getting into API. I started learning about APIC EM and all these things back then, and helped write the network engineer specialist exam, which was really cool. And then DevNet was just starting out, and then they took that book and it became kind of like the unofficial guide for network programmability and automation. And here I am now. They give me this sticker, which is so funny, right?
You gotta tell us about that.
This sticker, the godfather of programmability. So Sylvia Spiva, who used to be doing all the marketing for DevNet, amazing person, she tells me one day we're sitting at a party, and I'm standing there, and there's like this huge crushed red velvet curtain behind me, and there's a spotlight just like shooting down on this bald head, and I'm just kind of standing there with my hands crossed, you know. And she looked at me and she goes, "You look like the Godfather." And I'm over there, just like, you know, thinking of the movie. I'm like, "Oh, kiss my ring," and all this, just joking around, right? And she just goes, "The Godfather of programmability," and I'm like, No, because there's the Hank Prestons and the Adam Radfords and all these people out there who know way better than I do, right? What ended up happening is I had this niche that I was really good at getting people started and breaking down the fear of getting started on it, right? And that spawned into, as I helped with the DevNet certifications, I helped with, even before there was even DevNet certifications, I helped with DevNet, I helped with all these programmability things, and they gave me this persona and awarded me this sticker of the Godfather of Programmability. Hashtag Godfather of Programmability. Shouts out to Sylvia for that and the DevNet team. Great relationship there and an amazing partnership over the years.
But there's a lesson there for everyone, right? Technology changes all the time.
All the time.
We're all learning every day because things are changing so rapidly.
Yep.
Don't be scared to take on a big challenge because it helps you, right? Open up doors and all kinds of things.
Changed my whole life, right? I mean, and even in addition to that, right, to piggyback on what you just said, don't be afraid to start now because it might feel like the train has left the station and you're so far behind on all this stuff. The truth of the matter is almost everybody is, all right? And nobody's willing to want to come out and say that except the folks who've been through the bumps and bruises. So if you get started now, at least you're on the train. And by the time you realize it, you're down the path. You know how to do this, you know how to do that. Go to developer.cisco.com. Look at DevNet. Look at all these different resources that are out there, and get started now. It's free. It's an amazing opportunity because it'll change your life. It really will.
There's a book I really love, Atomic Habits.
Oh, I read it.
You like it? Great book.
I'm actually. It's funny you say that. I am on the beta list for testing. There's an app called Atoms, so check it out. It's coming out. Shouts out to James Clear because there's an app called Atoms that he has put out that is a companion to that book, Atomic Habits, and I'm a beta tester for it.
Oh, that's cool.
An incredible app to
What does it do?
really, you could track any different type of habit you want to start. It gives you all kinds of mindfulness tips and techniques. How do you look at maybe changing and tweaking your habits so you can be successful with it, make it repeatable, make it something that's easy, something that you have to be accountable for. So maybe getting accountability buddies.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're actually following through, and you'll be surprised. Like I meditate all the time. I do yoga every day, martial arts, all this stuff. It started off with making these little habits. That book changed my life as well. So I highly encourage you to read that book as well.
Yeah, that 1% thing, right? Just change a little bit every day. And it's amazing what you can do.
It changes everything. I remember I was sitting in my office, and this is a true, honest to God story. I'm sitting in my office, and I'm listening to this book, and he mentions you have to become your own environmental designer.
Yeah, that's
right?
Good, yeah.
So if clutter makes you anxious, you have to declutter your zone or wherever you're working. I've noticed that everything I'm doing is in this one office, studio, recording, everything is, and I'm like, it was just driving me mad. So I'm literally listening to this book, and I start ripping everything out of my office down to nothing but the carpet. And I redesigned my whole office because of listening to this. Bought a standing desk, went full all in, listening to this environmental designer thing because of James Clear and that book. Changed my whole life.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I want to ask you a question related to that.
Sure.
Is it talent or habit that makes you succeed? Or is it like motivation or habit that makes you succeed? Because to write 7 books is a lot.
So I would say habit and motivation build talent.
Okay, great. I like
Because
that. Yeah.
I didn't know DevNet, I didn't know programmability or any of this stuff, and I've written all these books about it and stuff now, which still blows my mind today. Can't believe it. Finding your reason as to why
Yeah.
And I'll go. I've said this on a lot of different interviews. I came from nothing. We had no money growing up. Moved
Tell us
around.
more, right? Because
Yeah.
people might not have seen
Yeah,
that. So tell us a bit.
So I grew up in a very, very poor communities outside of Chicago, and my parents, sadly, we had no money. We didn't have a lot of healthcare money either, going to free clinics and things, and we moved around a lot. And because of that, I realized that I wasn't getting, a lot of the education because I wasn't in school that much.
Oh, wow.
And the funny thing enough is, just recently, in cleaning out my whole office, I found my old report cards, and it said that I was absent in one semester like 47 days. Second one was like 50 days, which is it's most of the time. So when did I learn, right? And moving around like that, it was really difficult for us. And my dad worked at Illinois Bell, which is a phone company, back in the day, Ma Bell. And he was in the Navy as a phone guy, telecommunications person in the Navy before I was even born. He's teaching me at like 9 years old how to put in phones and POTS lines and all this phone service stuff. And I fell in love with it, technology. And then as the years went on, I found out about this thing called Cisco. I got my A+ certification. I was going there doing that because I just love computers and ripping things apart. And I'm at school, and I'm doing Novell certification for my CNA and 411B, so that's how old that is, right? I hear about this thing called Cisco. My best friend calls me up and is like, dude, have you heard about Cisco? It's like a totally separate operating system like DOS and Linux. You have to check it out. And I started hearing about networking and Cisco. I absolutely fell in love with it, right? So this was when eBay was basically just starting, right? And we're talking like 97 or something like that, way back. They had a ccna study kit that was for sale, and it was like $5,000 or $5,500 on it. And when I tell you what was in it, 32501 routers.
That's crazy.
An Adtran MUX, a 1924 switch, some 10-base-T AUI adapters that go from the 60-pin serial into your RJ45. And it was just crazy. And I think it was like running iOS like 10 or something way back. And I told my dad, and again, we didn't have a lot of money. And my dad was a landscaper, owned his own business. It was snow plowing, landscaping. And I said, Dad, I want to do this. And I want to see if you would buy me this study kit. And, there's a longer story there. I was kind of ejected from school when I was growing up because we moved around a lot. And I was kind of a twit back then. And I got kicked out of high school. And I got my good enough diploma, which is the GED for everybody out there, general equivalency. And all of a sudden, I told my dad, who thought I was not going to make it very far, that I needed $5,500 to buy this thing. And he looked at me, and he said, okay.
Wow.
And he bought it. And that was it. I never looked back. I kept doing that. I went and got my CCNA, which was the biggest turning point in my life, was proving to myself that I could actually do it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. I passed that test, and then I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? I guess I have to go for this thing called the ccnp. And I've told this story before. The same best friend, he calls me, he goes, dude, the Cisco thing, if you get your CCNA, you can make over $250,000 a year. And then there's a CCNP, which is a professional, you're like $375,000 a year. And I'm over here like, what? And he goes, but dude, there's a thing out there called the ccie, Cisco Certified Internet Networking Expert. And if you get this, you make more than the president. This is,
I love it.
no, bear in mind, he's like 16. So at that time, I'm like, more than the president. I'm going to go get my CCIE and go work for Cisco one day. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time. But March 29th of 2013, I passed. And by July 8th, I was working at Cisco.
That's crazy.
It was insane.
Did the CCIE open the door to Cisco? Or were you already talking to them before then?
I tried to interview a couple times before that. Oddly enough, even at CCNP level, I didn't have the skill set. And the biggest thing that I didn't have, which is funny enough now, right? Pre-sales experience.
Oh, wow.
How to talk to customers. I didn't have it. And so they wanted that documented experience. So I passed this thing, did a couple interviews for them. Still, they wanted somebody who was already trained in pre-sales. And I ended up getting a job at a Cisco partner. I got hired onto this company, and I was supposed to start on a Monday. The Wednesday before that Monday, Cisco calls me back and says, hey, you still want to work at Cisco? And I'm like, I got to be honest, I'm starting a new job on Monday. And he's like, oh, I see. You still come in and meet with me? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Then I met with him. Shouts out to Jeff Berger for hiring me. I love you. And changed my life. I met with this gentleman, and then another person come in, and another person come in. And then all of a sudden, this younger guy comes in, and he sits down, crosses his arms, looks at me, rolls a dry erase marker across the table to me, and he goes, explain OSPF LSA types. And I'm like,
just on your CCIE.
I just passed my CCIE, and okay. So I draw it all out, and big shout out to Narvik, right? Because Narvik had a really good way of drawing out OSPF LSA types. So I drew that out for him and explained LSA types to him. And he was like, oh man, I just wanted to know that because I'm going for my CCIE.
Oh, that's funny.
So I get hired. They bring me on. I become his official mentor, train him up to get CCIE. He passes, leaves Cisco, goes to the partner I was working at, and took the job that I left. Hand to God.
That's so
he
funny.
Took that job, and that's how that turned around. And
That's so funny.
isn't that nuts? You can't explain some of these things. They just happen, and it's just so crazy.
So Jason, you're one of those guys that I think is an amazing person to, look up to and learn from. Author, double CCIE, but you also did a whole bunch of sessions at Cisco Live, right?
Yeah, so that was another thing that was like a dream come true. So, I mentioned I started Cisco in July of 2013. And next thing you know, I go to my first Cisco Live that year, like in June. So I actually was at Cisco Live in June as a Cisco employee who hadn't started yet, just passed my CCIE in March, walking in that special side door of the Learning and Certifications booth, completely like a deer in headlights. So like I've never experienced anything like this. And meeting all these different folks. I'm sitting down and I'm just eating all this cool food because it's CCIE food, right? You come in a special door. I'm sitting there and I sit down with this gentleman and we're talking for a good 40 minutes. And he's like, well, if you ever decide to get your CCDE, let me know. And I had never even considered it at the time because I was thinking I was going to go data center or something. It's Russ White.
Oh wow!
I had no idea. I'm sitting there for an hour talking to Russ White. And God rest his soul, Bo Williamson walks up and starts talking to us. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've read your multicast book front to back how many times, and it literally made all the difference in the world on how to pass these exams, right? And it was so crazy to me. So I was just so enamored with it. But when I looked around at all the people and that I felt like these are our people, the folks who love networking and technology, and in a situation like this, it's so incredible. So then as the years go by, next thing you know, my friend Andre Laurent, who I'm sure a lot of folks know out there in the industry as well, wrote one of the design books for ccnp and everything, gives me his MPLS session. And he becomes my manager later on in life here. And I start presenting at Cisco Live this MPLS session. And the funny thing about that, there were 3 topics that were absolutely, that petrified me. Multicast,
Yes.
quality of service, MPLS, right? And I'm sure that's a lot for a lot of the people out there. It's the same way, right? Over the years, I did some stuff with Anthony Sequeira and Terry Vinson, back when they were at another company, and I tech edited some of their books that were on those 3 major topics. So I started becoming more and more familiar with it, and then I'm presenting it. In one of my slides, it says MPLS. And I says, is this you? And I click it, and it says, most painful to learn and study. And everybody laughs every time, and I said, it's not. And here's why. And then we go through it, and I break it down, and it's just so funny. I think if you take anything, and this is advice I know you give as well, anything that might be complex, break it down in small, manageable chunks, learn that little chunk, then add another little chunk. And you'll be surprised when you look back, you're on that train already, but now you're almost in the front car because you've been doing it for so long. And you didn't realize all you got to do is just hop on.
Jason, really want to thank you,
Absolutely.
for sharing your story as inspiration for everyone. It's great to see you, man.
Thank you for all that you do, too. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot from watching you as well, my friend.
Appreciate it, man.
God bless you. We'll see you.